My son pushed my plate aside. Said dinner wasn't for me. I gripped the hot tray. Lifted it to my chest. Walked out. Their forks kept scraping. No one followed. If you're watching this, subscribe and let me know where you're watching from. My name is Marian Fletcher. 74 years old. Once a school nurse in Ohio. That evening, I sat at my son's table. Same table where I'd eaten Sunday dinners for 3 years. Since they moved me in. Since they decided I needed watching. David pushed my plate to the side. His voice was smooth, managerial, the way he spoke to interns at his law firm. "You'll eat later," he told me. His eyes never left his own food. I looked at the roast beef. The one I'd cooked all morning. My hands had peeled those carrots. My salt had seasoned that meat. Now it sat beyond my reach. Caroline passed plates down the table. Her movements were crisp, efficient, like everything else she did at the hospital where she worked. She skipped mine, acted like it wasn't there. Like I wasn't there. I watched her serve Mark first. He's 16, David's boy. Then she served David. Then herself. The empty space in front of me grew larger. More obvious. More deliberate. Something inside me shifted. Not rage. Not hurt. Clarity. I had spent 3 years in this house. 3 years of being managed. Of being told when to shower. When to take my pills. When to go to bed. When to wake up. 3 years of Caroline's hospital voice telling me what I could and couldn't do. Of David's lawyer logic explaining why every choice I made was wrong. Unsafe. Unreasonable. I stood up. The chair scraped against the hardwood floor. No one looked at me. I walked to the kitchen counter. The roast sat there in its pan. Still warm. Still mine. I wrapped my hands around the edges of the tray. The metal burned my palms. I didn't let go. I lifted it to my chest. Held it close. Like a baby. Like something precious. I walked through the dining room. Past David cutting his meat into perfect squares. Past Caroline wiping Mark's mouth with her napkin. Past the chandelier that cast circles of light on their plates. I walked to the front door. Opened it with one hand. Stepped into the October air. Behind me, the scraping continued. Fork against porcelain. Knife against plate. The sounds of a family eating dinner. Without me. I walked 3 blocks. To my old house. The one they'd been trying to sell. The one they said was too much for me. Too big. Too dangerous. I still had the key. Inside, the air smelled like dust and emptiness. Like a place that had been waiting. I turned on the kitchen light. Set the tray on my old table. The one with the nick in the corner where Lydia used to do her homework. Lydia, my daughter. Gone 10 years now. She would have never pushed my plate aside. Never told me to wait. Never treated me like a problem to be solved. I found a plate in the cabinet. Chipped blue ceramic. I'd eaten from it for 20 years. It fit my hands. Familiar. Mine. I cut the roast. Served myself carrots. Poured gravy over everything. Ate slowly. Deliberately. The flavor came back to me. Salt and pepper. Thyme from the garden I used to tend. Onions I'd chopped with my own knife. For the first time in years, the food tasted like mine. Outside, cars passed. Their headlights swept across my kitchen wall. Inside, the refrigerator hummed. The clock ticked. Normal sounds. Honest sounds. I finished eating. Washed the plate. Dried it with a towel that still hung where I'd left it. I sat in my old chair. The one by the window. Where I used to watch the sunrise. Before David decided I needed supervision. Before Caroline made her lists of everything I couldn't do. The house was quiet. Not the busy silence of someone else's rules. Just quiet. Empty. Waiting for me to fill it again. I thought about tomorrow. About the bank account David managed. About the mail Caroline sorted. About the pills she counted out each morning like I was a child. I thought about my daughter Lydia's girl. Emma, 28 now. A teacher like her mother had been a librarian. Emma who called me Grandma Marian. Who listened when I talked. Who remembered my stories. Emma who had her mother's gentle eyes. Her mother's patience. Her mother's heart. I pulled out a piece of paper. Found a pen in the kitchen drawer. Started writing. A list. Short. Simple. Mine. Call the bank. Call my lawyer. Change the locks. The list was only 3 lines long. But it felt like the beginning of something. Like the first step back to myself. I folded the paper. Put it in my pocket. Tomorrow would be different. Tomorrow would be mine. If you're watching this, subscribe and let me know where you're watching from. I woke up in my own bed. The mattress sagged where it always had. For 40 years, this had been my side. The left side. Where I'd slept next to Harold until cancer took him. The morning light came through curtains I had chosen. Blue flowers on white cotton. Faded now, but mine. I lay still. Listened to the house breathing around me. No Caroline in the hallway making lists. No David checking his phone at breakfast. No Mark practicing piano scales at 7 in the morning. Just quiet. Honest quiet. I made coffee in my old percolator. The one Caroline said was too slow. Too old-fashioned. The kitchen filled with the smell I remembered. Rich. Dark. Real. I sat at my table with the newspaper. Yesterday's paper that David's neighbor boy still delivered. The same boy who'd been delivering papers here for 3 years. Even after they moved me out. The headlines blurred. I wasn't reading. I was remembering. Remembering autumn afternoons when I used to rake leaves. Until David told me it was too risky. Too much bending. Too much lifting. Too dangerous for a woman my age. Remembering the garden I used to tend. Until Caroline decided the chemicals were unsafe. The tools too heavy. The work too strenuous. Remembering Sunday phone calls with friends. Until David suggested I limit them. Too much gossip, he said. Too much dwelling on the past. Every memory came with his voice attached. His reasonable voice. His concerned voice. His voice that made my choices disappear one by one. For 3 years, he'd been giving orders. Calling them care. Calling them concern. Calling them love. Caroline had her own way. She spoke like she was reading hospital policy. Smooth. Professional. Final. She never raised her voice. Never showed anger. Just delivered instructions like they were medical facts. Time for your pills, she would say. Time for your bath. Time for bed. Never asking. Always telling. And I had listened. Had nodded. Had followed their rules like a good patient. Like a problem being managed. But last night, something had broken. Or maybe something had been set free. I thought about Lydia, my daughter. Gone 10 years now. Lydia who had called every Sunday. Who brought soup when I was sick. Who asked my opinion about everything. Lydia would never have pushed my plate aside. Would never have made me eat alone. Would never have treated me like I was in the way. But Lydia was gone. And David was all I had left. David and his wife and his rules and his reasonable voice explaining why I couldn't be trusted with my own life. Except I wasn't all David had left. There was Emma, Lydia's girl. Emma who visited when David wasn't watching. Who brought me books and flowers? Who remembered my birthday with cards she made herself? Emma, who had inherited her mother's heart, her mother's patience, her mother's way of really listening. I pulled out the list I'd written. The 3 lines that felt like the beginning of everything. Call the bank. Call my lawyer. Change the locks. Simple words. But each one was a door opening. Each one was a choice I was making for myself. I found my address book. The one with phone numbers I'd collected over 74 years. Friends. Doctors. The bank where Harold and I had kept our money for 30 years. I dialed slowly. Let each number click into place. The bank manager knew my voice. Had known it since Harold died. Since David started coming to appointments with me. Started asking questions. Started taking over. I told the manager I wanted to meet. Today. This morning. I wanted to review my accounts. All of them. His voice was careful. Professional. He asked if Mr. David would be joining me. No, I told him. Just me. There was a pause. Then he said he'd see me at 10. I hung up. Sat back in my chair. The first call was made. Next, I found my lawyer's number. Mr. Grant. The man who'd handled Harold's will. Who'd helped us buy this house. Who'd known us when we were young. His secretary said he could see me Tuesday morning. I said I'd be there. 2 calls. 2 appointments. 2 steps back toward myself. I walked through the house. Room by room. Touching things. Remembering things. The couch where Lydia used to read. The piano bench where she practiced scales. The kitchen window where I watched her play in the backyard. Everything was covered in dust. 3 years of dust. 3 years of emptiness. But underneath the dust, everything was waiting. Still mine. Still here. I opened windows. Let the October air sweep through. Cold air. Clean air. Air that smelled like freedom. In the afternoon, I heard a car in the driveway. David's car. The engine turned off. Footsteps on the walk. I didn't answer the door. I sat in my chair by the window and watched him knock. Watched him try the handle. Watched him peer through the glass. He knocked for 5 minutes. Then he left. Later, my phone rang. I let it ring. It rang again an hour later. I let it ring again. By evening, there were 6 messages on my answering machine. David's voice getting more concerned. More insistent. More demanding. I erased them all without listening. I made myself dinner. Scrambled eggs and toast. Simple food. Quiet food. Food I could eat at my own pace. The house settled around me as darkness fell. Familiar creaks. Familiar sounds. The sounds of a place that knew me. I looked at my list again. 2 items done. 1 to go. Tomorrow, I would change the locks. Tomorrow, I would make this house mine again. Completely mine. Tonight, I was already home. I dressed carefully that morning. My navy blue dress. The one with pearl buttons. The one I wore to church before David decided I was too frail for services. I brushed my hair. Pinned it back the way I'd worn it for 40 years. Applied lipstick. The coral shade Lydia always said brought out my eyes. In the mirror, I saw myself. Not the confused old woman David described. Not the patient Caroline managed. Just me, Marian Fletcher. 74 years old and still breathing. The bank smelled like carpet cleaner and fresh coffee. The same smell it had carried for 30 years. Some things don't change. Some things wait. I walked to the counter. My heels clicked against the marble floor. Solid sounds. Sure sounds. Alex was the young teller. Maybe 25. Eager to help. ready to guide an elderly woman through the complicated world of banking. He looked at me the way they all did now. Careful, patient, like I might get confused. Like I might need extra explaining. I placed my driver's license on the counter. Flat, deliberate, looked him straight in the eyes. I want to revoke all account access, I told him. Cancel all automatic transfers. Remove all secondary signers. His eyebrows climbed toward his hairline. He glanced at his computer screen. Then back at me. Mrs. Fletcher, he said slowly. Are you sure you want to remove Mr. David Fletcher's access? I am sure, I said. He hesitated, clicked his mouse, frowned at the screen. Mrs. Fletcher, there are several monthly transfers set up. Automatic payments. Are you certain you want to cancel all of them? All of them, I said. The transfers I knew about. The ones David had arranged. For his children's school fees. For Caroline's gym membership. For their grocery bills and gas cards and subscription services. Money that flowed from my accounts to their lives. Money Harold and I had saved. Money from the house we sold. Money from his insurance policy. Money they spent like it belonged to them. Alex printed forms. 3 pages of them. Each line requiring my signature. Each signature returning control to me. I signed slowly, deliberately. My handwriting was steady, had always been steady, despite what they whispered about tremors and confusion. Page 1, page 2, page 3. With each signature, I felt something unlocking. Some chain falling away. Alex processed the forms. His fingers moved quickly across the keyboard. Numbers disappeared from screens. Automatic transfers stopped. Access codes changed. When he finished, he looked up at me. His expression had shifted. Less patronizing. More respectful. Is there anything else, Mrs. Fletcher? Yes, I said. I want a flag placed on all accounts. No changes without my written authorization. In person only. With identification. He nodded. Made more notes. The flag would protect me. Would protect what was mine. I left the bank humming. Not a particular song. Just a sound of satisfaction. A sound I hadn't made in years. The locksmith's shop was 3 blocks away. I'd driven past it hundreds of times. Never needed it before. David had always handled things like locks and keys and security. But David wouldn't be handling anything anymore. The locksmith was an older man. Gray beard. Kind eyes. He listened while I explained what I needed. New locks for the front door. The back door. The side entrance by the garage. He could come that afternoon, he said. Have everything changed by evening. I gave him my address. My phone number. Paid him in cash from the envelope I'd brought. By 3 o'clock, he was at my house. His van parked in the driveway. Tools spread across my front steps. I watched him work, removing the old locks. The ones David had keys to. The ones that had let him come and go as he pleased. Each old lock came away easily. Like they'd been waiting to be replaced. Like they knew their time was finished. The new locks were brass. Solid, heavy in my hands when he gave me the keys. 4 keys total. 2 for the front door. 1 for the back. 1 for the side entrance. Mine. Only mine. The locksmith tested each door. Showed me how the deadbolts worked. How the keys turned. Left and right. Lock and unlock. Simple motions. But they felt like freedom. That evening, I walked through my house. Touching each new lock. Turning each key. Listening to the solid click of metal finding its home. No one else had these keys. No one else could enter without my permission. The house was mine again. Completely mine. I made dinner in my own kitchen. Chicken soup from a can. Crackers from a sleeve. Simple food. Quiet food. As I ate, I heard a car in the driveway. David's car again. The door slammed. Footsteps approached. The doorbell rang. Then knocking. Then more knocking. I sat at my table and continued eating. Spooning soup slowly. Methodically. The knocking grew louder. More insistent. David's voice called my name through the door. Asked if I was all right. Demanded that I answer. I took another spoonful of soup. Let it warm my throat. The knocking stopped. I heard him walking around the house. Trying the back door. The side entrance. Testing each lock. Each one held firm. His footsteps returned to the front porch. The doorbell rang again. Long and demanding. I finished my soup. Washed the bowl. Dried it with a clean towel. The ringing stopped. The car engine started. The sound faded down the street. I turned off the lights. Checked each lock one more time. Solid. Secure. Mine. In my bedroom, I hung my navy dress in the closet. The dress that had carried me through this day. This important day. I brushed my teeth with my own toothbrush. Washed my face with my own soap. Climbed into my own bed. The house settled around me. Safe sounds. Protected sounds. For the first time in 3 years, I was truly alone. And for the first time in 3 years, alone felt like victory. If you're watching this, subscribe and let me know where you're watching from. Tuesday morning came gray and quiet. Rain tapped against my windows. Gentle rain. Patient rain. The kind that washes things clean. I dressed in my charcoal suit. The one I'd worn to Harold's funeral. The one I'd worn to Lydia's memorial service. My serious clothes. My business clothes. The law office smelled like leather and old paper. Like decisions made and documents signed. Like promises kept and promises broken. Mr. Grant looked exactly the same. Silver hair. Wire glasses. The same careful hands that had guided Harold and me through buying our first house. He stood when I entered. Shook my hand firmly. His grip was warm. Familiar. Real. I sat in the chair where I'd sat 20 years ago. When Harold and I wrote our wills. When we planned for a future we thought we understood. Mr. Grant asked how I was doing. How I was managing. His voice carried real concern. Not the professional concern David used. Not the clinical concern Caroline practiced. Just concern. Human concern. I told him I needed to make changes. Legal changes. Important changes. He opened a yellow pad. Picked up his pen. Waited for me to begin. I want to revoke David's power of attorney, I said. Mr. Grant nodded. Made a note. Asked if there were other changes I wanted to make. I want to create a living trust, I said. I want Emma to be the beneficiary. More notes. More questions. What about medical decisions? What about end-of-life care? I want Emma to speak for me, I said. If I can't speak for myself. His pen moved across the paper. Steady strokes. Legal words taking shape. What prompted these changes? He asked gently. He told me to eat after everyone else, I said. Mr. Grant's pen stopped moving. He looked up at me. His eyes were kind but serious. That sentence explained everything. The years of being managed. The years of being dismissed. The years of watching my own life slip away one decision at a time. Mr. Grant nodded once. He understood. We spent 2 hours going through documents. Page after page of legal language. Words that would protect me. Words that would restore my authority over my own life. A living trust naming Emma as successor trustee. A new will leaving everything to her. A medical directive giving her the right to make decisions if I couldn't. Most importantly, a revocation of David's power of attorney. The document that had given him control over my finances, my medical care, my future. That power was ending today. I signed each page carefully. My handwriting was clear, steady, determined. With each signature, I felt something shifting. Some weight lifting, some burden falling away. Mr. Grant witnessed my signatures. His secretary notarized them, official stamps pressed into official paper. When we finished, he handed me a thick manila folder. Everything was inside. Copies of every document. Proof of every change. The folder was heavy. Not just with paper but with possibility. With restored choice. He walked me to the door. Shook my hand again. Told me to call if I needed anything. Anything at all, he said. I drove home slowly. The rain had stopped. Afternoon sun broke through the clouds. Everything looked washed. Clean. New. At home, I placed the folder on my kitchen table. Opened it. Read through each document again. Legal words. Complex phrases. But the meaning was simple. I was in charge again. That evening, I called Emma. Her voice was warm, surprised, happy to hear from me. I told her about the changes I'd made. About the trust. About the medical directive. About choosing her to speak for me if I ever needed someone to speak. She was quiet for a long moment. Then she asked if I was sure. I was sure, I told her. Surer than I'd been about anything in years. She said she was honored. Said she would take care of everything if the time ever came. Said she loved me. I loved her too, I said. After we hung up, I sat at my table with the legal documents spread before me. Each page was a door I'd opened. Each signature was a step toward freedom. I thought about David. About the moment he would discover what I'd done. The moment he realized his control was gone. He would be angry. Would accuse me of being manipulated. Of not understanding what I was doing. Of making a terrible mistake. But for once, his anger wouldn't matter. His accusations wouldn't stick. His voice wouldn't be the one that counted. The law was on my side now. My signature was on every page. My choices were documented, protected, official. I made tea in my favorite cup. The one with roses painted around the rim. Sat by my window as darkness fell. Cars passed on the street outside. People coming home from work. From errands. From their own battles and victories. I was home too. In my own house. With my own choices. My own future. The manila folder sat on my table like a guardian. Like a shield. Like proof that 74 years old didn't mean powerless. It meant experienced. It meant wise. It meant done with being told what to do. I finished my tea. Washed the cup. Put the legal documents away in my desk drawer. Safe. Secure. Mine. Tomorrow, David would probably come again. Would knock on my door. Would demand explanations. Would try to convince me I'd made a mistake. But tomorrow, I would have legal ground to stand on. Documents to prove my competence. A lawyer who believed in my right to choose. Tomorrow, I wouldn't just be an old woman hiding in her house. I would be Marian Fletcher. Property owner. Legal decision maker. Woman in charge of her own life. For the first time in years, that felt like enough. Thursday afternoon brought Caroline to my door. I watched her through the window. Stepping carefully up my front walk. Carrying a glass dish. Wearing her hospital smile. She pressed the doorbell. Once. Twice. 3 times. I sat in my chair. Didn't move. Didn't answer. The knocking started. Gentle at first. Then more insistent. Her voice came through the door. Sweet. Professional. Concerned. "Marian," she called. "We brought you dinner. We're worried about you." I stayed in my chair. Let her worry. More knocking. More calling. She tried the door handle. Found it locked. Tried it again like the lock might change its mind. After 10 minutes, she left. Her heels clicked down the walk. Frustrated clicks. Angry clicks. The glass dish sat on my doorstep. Covered with foil. Still warm. I left it there. That evening, she came back with David. I heard their voices through the door. David's reasonable tone. Caroline's professional concern. They knocked louder this time. David called my name. Said they needed to talk. Said I was being unreasonable. Childish. Difficult. The words bounced off my new locks. Off my closed door. Off my decision to stop listening. They circled the house again. Checking windows. Testing doors. Finding everything secure. Everything locked. Everything mine. Their car finally drove away. The sound faded into the night. Friday morning, Emma came. I knew her knock. Light. Patient. Respectful. I opened the door. She stood on my porch holding a white bakery box. Her smile was real. Not practiced like Caroline's. Not demanding like David's. Just glad to see me. She didn't ask about the glass dish still sitting by my steps. Didn't mention David's angry phone calls. Didn't lecture me about family obligations. She just stepped inside, set the bakery box on my counter, put the kettle on for tea. "I'm glad you left," she said quietly. 4 simple words, but they meant everything. We sat at my kitchen table. Ate pastries from the bakery box. Drank tea from my good china. The cups with tiny flowers around the rim. Emma asked how I was feeling. Really feeling. Not the polite question people ask when they don't want real answers. Free, I told her. Tired, but free. She nodded. She understood tired. She was a teacher. Dealt with difficult parents. Demanding administrators. People who thought they knew better. We talked about Lydia. About the mother Emma missed. The daughter I grieved. We talked about David's need to control everything. Everyone. Emma said he'd been calling her. Asking her to convince me to come home. To stop being stubborn. To accept help. "What did you tell him?" I asked. "That you seemed perfectly capable of making your own decisions," she said. After she left, I felt lighter. Like someone had lifted a weight I hadn't realized I was carrying. Saturday brought Mark to my door. David's 16-year-old son. He shuffled on my porch. Held a bag of groceries. Looked uncomfortable. His knock was hesitant. Uncertain. I opened the door. He stood there looking embarrassed. Like he'd been sent on an errand he didn't understand. "Mom thinks you won't forgive her," he said. I studied his face. Young. Confused. Caught between his parents' anger and my quiet rebellion. "Come in," I told him. He set the groceries on my counter. Milk. Bread. Canned soup. Things Caroline thought I needed. Things she'd sent to prove her caring. I made him a sandwich. Ham and cheese on white bread. Cut it diagonally like I'd done when he was small. We sat at my table. He ate quietly. Glanced around the kitchen like he was seeing it for the first time. "Are you mad at us?" he asked finally. "Not mad," I said. "Just done being told what to do." He chewed thoughtfully. Asked if I was lonely living by myself. Sometimes, I told him. But lonely is different from alone. He didn't understand yet. But someday he would. Someday he'd learn the difference between solitude and isolation. Between choosing to be alone and being pushed aside. Before he left, he hugged me. Quick, awkward, but real. Family and boundaries aren't enemies, I told him. He looked puzzled, but he nodded. Sunday passed quietly. No visitors. No phone calls. No demands or explanations or guilt disguised as concern. I read a book I'd bought years ago. Never had time to finish. Cooked meals for one. Listened to music without asking anyone's permission. The silence felt rich. Full. Like a gift I'd given myself. Monday brought David's final attempt. He came alone this time. No Caroline. No Mark. No backup plan. His knock was sharp. Official. The knock of someone who expected to be answered. I didn't answer. He called my name through the door. Demanded I open it. Said we needed to discuss my recent behavior. My poor decisions. My obvious confusion. He used his lawyer voice. The one that worked in conference rooms. The one that made opposing counsel back down. It didn't work on my front door. After 20 minutes, he left. But not before shouting that I was making a mistake. That I'd regret this. That I was being selfish and ungrateful. His words hit my door. Bounced off. Fell to the ground like stones. Inside, I sat at my table. Ate soup from a can. Crackers from a sleeve. Simple food. Quiet food. Food that tasted like choice. The house was mine. The silence was mine. The decision was mine. For the first time in 3 years, no one was telling me what to do. What to think. What to want. I was 74 years old. I had survived a husband's death. A daughter's loss. A son's control. I could survive my own freedom. The evening light slanted through my kitchen window. Golden light. Peaceful light. Light that belonged to me. If you're watching this, subscribe and let me know where you're watching from. The apartment ad was small. Tucked between larger notices in the Sunday paper. 2 lines of text. Simple. Honest. Upstairs unit. Morning light. Quiet building. Available immediately. I called the number. A man answered. His voice was kind. Patient. He asked when I'd like to see it. This afternoon, I told him. The building sat on Maple Street. 3 blocks from the library. 4 blocks from the grocery store. Walking distance from everything I needed. Mr. Shaw met me at the front door. He was younger than I'd expected. Maybe 50. His handshake was firm. His smile was real. He led me up narrow stairs. 14 steps. I counted them. My knees held. My breathing stayed steady. The apartment was small. 2 rooms. A kitchen with white cabinets. A bathroom with subway tiles. Windows facing east. Morning light, he said. Just like the ad promised. I walked from room to room. Touched the walls. Tested the faucets. Opened every cabinet door. The place smelled clean. Empty. Ready. Paint the kitchen if you like, Mr. Shaw said. Any color you want. Any color I wanted. When had anyone last said that to me? I signed the lease that afternoon. 1 year. Renewable. My name at the bottom in steady handwriting. The security deposit came from my own checking account. The first month's rent too. Money I controlled. Money that was mine to spend. Moving day was Wednesday. I packed boxes in my old house. 40 years of living folded into cardboard containers. Books from the shelf by my chair. Dishes from cabinets I'd arranged myself. Pictures of Lydia. Pictures of Harold. Pieces of a life I was taking with me. Emma came to help. She wrapped my good china in tissue paper. Packed my clothes in suitcases. labeled boxes with a black marker. We worked quietly, efficiently. Two women dismantling one life to build another. The moving truck was small. Just big enough. The driver was careful with my furniture. Respectful of my boxes. Mr. Shaw helped carry things upstairs. He didn't comment on how little I was bringing. Didn't ask about family. Didn't wonder why a woman my age was starting over. He just carried boxes, helped position my couch, made sure everything fit. By evening, I was moved in. Emma and I unpacked the kitchen first. Put plates in cabinets. Arranged cups on shelves. Found places for everything. She hung a small print above the sink. Yellow lemons on a green tree. Bright, cheerful, full of life. It looks perfect, she said. The first night in the new place was quiet. Different quiet. Building quiet. Other people's footsteps. Other people's televisions. Other people's lives happening around mine. But not managing mine. Not controlling mine. Just existing alongside mine. I made tea in my own kettle. Sat in my own chair. Looked out my own window. The street below was alive with evening activity. People walking dogs. Children riding bicycles. Normal sounds. Peaceful sounds. Thursday morning brought my first neighbor. Mrs. Lopez from downstairs. She knocked gently. Introduced herself. She was 82. Walked with a cane covered in travel stickers. Had lived in the building for 15 years. She gave me advice. Don't put trash out too early. The raccoons make a mess. Avoid Mr. Peterson in 2B. He complains about everything. The mailman comes at 10:30. Practical information. Neighborly information. The kind of sharing that makes strangers into community. Friday, I painted the kitchen. Pale green. The color of spring leaves. The color of hope. Emma helped me choose the shade at the hardware store. We stood in the paint aisle for 20 minutes. Comparing swatches. Holding colors up to the light. This one, I said finally. This is the one. The paint went on smooth. Even. Transformative. Each brushstroke made the space more mine. By afternoon, the kitchen glowed soft green. Fresh. New. Ready for the life I was building. That evening, I cooked dinner in my green kitchen. Spaghetti with butter. Simple food, but food that tasted like independence. I ate at my small table. Looked out my window at the street below. Watched the world continue its business while I continued mine. Saturday brought a letter in my mailbox. My name on the envelope. Mrs. Marian Fletcher. Apartment 3A. The return address made me smile. Margaret Collins. My friend from nursing school. My friend from before marriage. Before children. Before loss. Her letter was 3 pages long. Handwritten in blue ink. She'd heard from mutual friends that I'd moved. Wanted to reconnect. Wanted to remember. She wrote about the woman I used to be. The one who danced in the rain. Who drove fast with the windows down. Who laughed until her stomach hurt. Do you remember? She wrote. Do you remember who you were before life told you to be careful? I did remember. Sitting in my green kitchen. Reading words that brought back pieces of myself I'd forgotten. The young nurse who worked double shifts. Who saved money for a car. Who dated boys her father didn't approve of. The young woman who had opinions. Who spoke up in meetings. Who believed she could change things. That woman was still inside me. Buried under years of being managed. Of being careful. Of being told what was safe and appropriate and reasonable. But still there. Still breathing. Still capable of painting kitchens green and signing leases and saying no to glass dishes left on doorsteps. That night, I put on music. Jazz from the collection I'd brought with me. Music David had called too loud. Music Caroline had called old-fashioned. I turned the volume up. Let Nina Simone's voice fill my small apartment. Let the bass line vibrate through my floors. And then I danced. Slowly, carefully, but I danced. In my green kitchen, in my own space, to my own music. For the first time in years, I moved like a woman instead of a patient. Like someone with a body meant for joy instead of just survival. The apartment held me. The walls witnessed. The morning light promised tomorrow would be mine too. I was 74 years old. I was starting over. I was remembering who I'd always been underneath the careful, quiet person everyone expected me to be. And for the first time in years, that felt like enough. More than enough. That felt like everything. Emma came on Tuesday with a canvas bag. Full of groceries, mushrooms and onions, fresh herbs, a loaf of bread wrapped in white paper. "Let's cook together," she said. We stood in my green kitchen, side by side, chopping vegetables on my small counter. The mushrooms were meaty, substantial. The onions made us both cry. Good tears, Emma said. Tears with purpose. I heated oil in my old pot. The same pot I'd used to make soup for David when he was sick. For Lydia when she came home from college. For Harold when the treatments made him tired. Now I was making soup for myself. For Emma. For no one else's schedule or preferences or dietary restrictions. The onions went in first. They sizzled, turned golden, filled the kitchen with honest smell. Emma asked about David, whether I missed the big house, the help with daily tasks, the sense of being looked after. I stirred the onions, thought about her question. I miss feeling useful, I told her. But I don't miss feeling managed. She added the mushrooms to the pot. They darkened, released their earthy smell, mixed with the sweetness of onions. "Do you regret everything you gave up?" she asked quietly. I stopped stirring, looked at her young face. Her mother's eyes, her mother's way of asking real questions. "I regret expecting repayment," I said. She nodded. She understood. We added stock to the pot. Watched it bubble. Tasted it with the same spoon. Added salt. Added pepper. Made it ours. The soup simmered while we talked. About David's need to control. About Caroline's professional kindness that never felt kind. About the difference between helping and taking over. Emma told me about her own struggles. With the principal who questioned every lesson plan. With parents who thought they knew better than teachers. With the pressure to smile and agree and never push back. "Sometimes I want to be like you," she said. "I want to walk out with my own plate." "Maybe you don't need to walk out," I said. "Maybe you just need to stop asking permission." We ate soup from mismatched bowls. Mine was blue ceramic. Hers was white with tiny flowers. Neither of us cared that they didn't match. The soup was perfect, rich, warming, made with our own hands at our own pace. After dinner, Emma pulled something from her purse. A set of keys on a simple ring. "These are yours," she said. "Spare keys to my apartment. For emergencies." She paused, looked at me directly. "But also because I want you to come whenever you want. Without asking. Without permission. Whenever." I took the keys. Held them in my palm. They were warm from her pocket. Light but significant. Honesty, I realized. This was what honesty looked like. Love without conditions. Without management. Without the expectation that gratitude meant obedience. That evening, after Emma left, I walked through my neighborhood. Past houses with lit windows. Past families eating dinner at their own pace. Past lives happening without supervision. The air was cool. October air. Full of possibility and change. I walked 6 blocks. Then 8. Then 10. My knees held steady. My breathing stayed even. My body remembered how to move through the world without asking permission. At the corner market, I bought cookies. Chocolate chip. Still warm from the oven. I ate one on the walk home. Sweet. Crumbly. Chosen by me for me. Back in my apartment, I made tea. Sat in my chair by the window. Watched the street settle into evening quiet. Mrs. Lopez knocked around 8 o'clock. She came in without waiting to be invited. Settled herself on my couch like we'd been neighbors for years. She asked about my son. The one who'd been calling the landlord. Asking questions. Making demands. Mr. Shaw told him you were a good tenant, she said. Paid on time. Quiet. No trouble. I thanked her for the information. Asked what else David had wanted to know. Everything, she said. Your visitors. Your schedule. Whether you seemed confused or forgetful. She shook her head. Made a sound of disapproval. Some children never learn to let go, she said. We drank tea together. Shared the cookies I'd bought. Talked about her grandchildren. Her late husband. Her decision to live alone rather than move in with family. Better to be lonely in your own space than crowded in someone else's. She said. After she left, I sat in my kitchen. The green walls glowed softly in the lamplight. The lemon tree print smiled down from above the sink. I thought about Emma's keys in my pocket. About Mrs. Lopez's easy friendship. About soup made together and cookies chosen freely. About the difference between solitude and isolation. Between independence and abandonment. David would never understand. In his world, love meant protection. Care meant control. Family meant obligation. But Emma understood. Mrs. Lopez understood. Even Mr. Shaw understood. Some people knew the difference between helping and taking over. Between caring and managing. Between love and capture. I washed my teacup. Dried it with a clean towel. Put it back in the cabinet I had organized myself. Tomorrow, I would call Margaret Collins. My old friend who remembered the woman I used to be. We would make plans. We would remember together. Tomorrow, I would walk to the library. Check out books I wanted to read. Sit in chairs no one had assigned to me. Tomorrow, I would continue the quiet work of becoming myself again. Not the careful version everyone expected. Not the managed version everyone preferred. Just myself. Marian Fletcher. 74 years old. Maker of soup. Walker of streets. Keeper of her own keys. The evening stretched before me. Mine to fill or leave empty. Mine to shape or simply experience. For the first time in years, that felt like a gift instead of a burden. Outside my window, the world continued its business. Inside my green kitchen, I continued mine. Both of us exactly where we belonged. If you're watching this, subscribe and let me know where you're watching from. My 75th birthday came on a Tuesday. Quiet. Unannounced. Mine. I woke in my own bed. In my own apartment. In my own time. The morning light painted rectangles on my green kitchen wall. Golden rectangles. Peaceful rectangles. No one had planned my day. No one had made reservations. No one had decided what I should want or how I should celebrate. I made pancakes for breakfast. 2 small ones. From a mix I'd bought myself. With syrup I'd chosen myself. Sweet. Simple. Perfect. I ate slowly. Deliberately. Watching the street wake up below my window. People walking to work. Children heading to school. Life happening at its own pace. After breakfast, I dressed carefully. My blue dress with the pearl buttons. The one I'd worn to the bank. The one that made me feel like myself. I walked to the cemetery where Harold lay. Where Lydia lay. Where I would someday lie. But not today. Today I was walking. Breathing. Choosing. I brought flowers. Yellow mums from the grocery store. Bright. Cheerful. Full of autumn warmth. I placed half on Harold's grave. Half on Lydia's. Told them about my new apartment. My green kitchen. My decision to stop asking permission. Harold would have understood. He'd always supported my choices. My nursing career. My opinions. My independence. Lydia would have been proud. Her mother finally standing up for herself. Finally walking out with her own plate. The wind moved through the cemetery trees. Rustled the leaves. Carried my words away like prayers. I walked home slowly. Stopped at the library. Checked out 3 books. Romance novels David would have called frivolous. Stories Caroline would have deemed inappropriate. Stories I wanted to read. That afternoon, Margaret Collins called. My friend from nursing school. My friend who remembered the woman I used to be. We talked for an hour. About the old days. About the work we'd loved. About the dreams we'd had. She invited me to visit. To come stay for a weekend. To remember together who we'd been before life taught us to be careful. Yes, I told her. Yes, I would come. After we hung up, I sat in my chair by the window. One of my new books open in my lap. Reading at my own pace. Stopping when I wanted. Continuing when I was ready. The afternoon light slanted across the pages. Made the words glow. Made the story come alive. Around 5 o'clock, Emma knocked. She carried a small white box. A birthday cake from the bakery downtown. Chocolate with vanilla frosting. My favorite. She'd remembered. Without being reminded. Without being managed. We ate cake in my green kitchen. Drank coffee from my mismatched cups. Talked about the books I'd borrowed. The plans I was making. Emma had news too. She'd submitted an application. For a teaching position in Vermont. Near mountains. Near forests. Far from principals who questioned everything. I'm learning to stop asking permission, she said. Just like you taught me. After she left, I found paper and pen. Sat at my small table. Wrote a letter. Not to David. Not to Caroline. Not to anyone who expected explanations or apologies. To Emma. A letter for later. For someday. For when I was gone and she needed to remember. Dear Emma, I wrote. What I have is yours. Not because of blood but because of kindness. I folded the letter. Put it in my desk drawer. Next to the legal documents that proved my competence. My right to choose. My return to myself. That evening, David's invitation arrived. Slipped under my door while I was reading. Heavy paper. Formal lettering. A request for dinner. A chance to start fresh. I read it once. Then again. His words were careful. Professional. Like a business proposal. I folded the invitation. Put it in the trash. Instead, I cooked for myself. Fish with lemon. Carrots roasted until they caramelized. Simple food. Honest food. Food that tasted like choice. I ate by candlelight. Not because the occasion demanded it. Because I wanted to. Because candles made ordinary moments special. After dinner, I locked my door from the inside. Not from fear. From decision. From the knowledge that this space was mine. Protected. Sacred. I put on music. Nina Simone again. Let her voice fill my apartment. Let the bass line vibrate through my bones. And I danced, slowly, carefully, but with joy, in my green kitchen, under my lemon tree print, to music I'd chosen myself. My body moved like it remembered being young, being free, being unmanaged. I danced until the song ended, until the apartment grew quiet, until I was breathless and laughing and completely myself. Outside, the world continued its business. Cars passed. People came home. Life happened without my participation or permission. Inside, I continued my own business. The business of being Marian Fletcher. 75 years old. Apartment dweller. Book reader. Cake eater. Dancer. The business of living my own life at my own pace for my own reasons. Morning would come tomorrow, with its own choices, its own possibilities, its own quiet moments of freedom. But tonight, I was exactly where I belonged. In my own space, making my own decisions, dancing to my own music. My worth had never been negotiable. I had only needed to remember it. Now I remembered. Now I knew. Now I was home, not in a place, but in myself. In the woman I'd always been underneath all the careful, quiet compliance. The woman who deserved pancakes on her birthday. Who deserved to choose her own books. Who deserved to dance alone in her green kitchen. The woman who had finally learned the most important lesson of all. That love without freedom is not love. It is capture. And I was done being captured.